past couple of weeks since we talked about doing this, I've kind of had the whole, Michael Caine sounds like my cocaine. And I've just had this picture of this despondent man over Victoria Falls, and it's a cloudy day and the wind picks up, and his bag of cocaine flies away, and he jumps in after it yelling, "My cocaine!" Kind of like, the "My manwich," but definitely,
far more addictive. Well, I don't know, cocaine, manwich. Like
they are, yeah.
There's similarities. So is this autobiographical? Is this just kind of a wish fulfillment thing for you? I mean,
it's very much autobiographical. I am a man in my late 20s to early 30s. I frequent Victoria Falls. My heart belongs in Africa.
And you have both a passion for Michael Caine and my cocaine. So It seems fitting. Are we rolling? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay. Hey everybody out there. This is the TBD podcast. This week on our bi-weekly rant/rave extravaganza, we are discussing the myriad and encyclopedic works of Michael Caine. I think encyclopedic is the right word. They're voluminous and they're varied.
He's been in over 100+ works. So I mean, I don't know if encyclopedic is quite the correct word because he hasn't done everything at the end of the day.
I mean, I have a lot of books dedicated to him on my wall. I've got a special shelf full of my Michael Caine books.
You've got your shrine up and going.
Yeah, the photos that I took while he was filming, Muppet Christmas Carol. I have some telescopic photos. I use them to sleep at night.
Did you also take pictures on the set of Cider House Rules when Tobey Maguire tried to make love to him 3 different times?
Wow. I actually have not seen Cider House Rules. I know it's based on a John Irving, which is... I love the author, but also I've only read one of his books. So it's one of those weird things where I know about it because it's one of my pops' favorite authors, and I've read one book by him, and I loved that book, but I've just never gotten around to either reading the book or seeing the movie. And I know that my pops, saw the movie and, straight, raged and screamed and walked out of the house. But that's also because he's hard. I mean, he did that during Lord of the Rings. Well, still one of my most treasured memories was him getting to the scene where Arwen shows up in the woods, and he flipped and got increasingly angrier until the fords... with all the horses, and he actually grabbed my mom's cane and screamed, "It isn't supposed to be this way!" and punctuated each word by slamming the floor.
Yeah.
And then flung the cane and walked out. So
yeah, it's something that I disagree with the vast majority of people in general and in our friend group about those films. I'm not a big fan of them, and I know a lot of people are, and especially this day and age, if you're weighing against The Hobbit, they look a lot better. But, to me, it became too much of, glorified fantasy combat for the sake of glorified fantasy combat.
That wasn't necessarily well shot, or...
Yeah, and, the fucking final movie, it has, 4 endings, it goes for, over 3 hours, and it doesn't get to where it should.
No. And I disagree with you about the 4 endings thing because it is a very logical series of events. They had to go through all of those. They had to have this denouement, this denouement, this denouement, this denouement. But they didn't have the motherfucking capper of the Scouring of the Shire.
Okay.
And,
I was obviously exaggerating with the whole 4 endings bit. But, watching the film in theaters, I was just okay, you could cut it here. You could cut it here. This is just droning on. Yeah. And then to sit through all the droning on without it actually going to the logical conclusion that should have gone to finish the fucking...
Yeah. No, I can feel that. I loved a lot of elements of the film, was mainly the visual ones. He got the visuals absolutely fucking perfect. Everything looked right. 90% of his casting was, so fucking dead on. The actors, for the most part, gave fantastic performances, but... I have so many issues with his directorial and writing and production, or not production actually, his directorial and writing decisions with the films, because it not only succeeded in gutting the book setup, it also succeeded in it, like shitting its own bed in a lot of ways. Like, let's just slow down this movie for 25 minutes of nonsensical Arwen crap.
Yeah, that's part of what I was referring to with the end of the third one, with the fucking wedding scene that goes on forever, and the shots of the light as it hits her face, and
Or why did they add the fact that Aragorn, for some reason, has a complex about I'm not gonna be the king. In the book, he's literally no shit. I'm waiting for the propitious time to take the crown because. We're
why he goes to the fucking tombs and everything. This is what he needs to do.
It's been set up. Yeah. I've been training for this for 90 years.
Anyways, we're talking about Michael Caine.
Yes.
Not Lord of the Rings, not Peter Jackson, not... but I think all of this leads into a lot of the questionable elements that I found with the 2007 Sleuth.
Yes.
Because... I watched both of them back to back because I wanted to see what Michael Caine did after being Milo, what he did with Andrew, because
he knocks Milo so hard out of the park.
He does, and at the end of the day, it is pretty much a two-man play. So
it's spoilers. Whoop whoop whoop. Spoilers. Whoop. But yeah, that's
I'm trying not to ruin Sleuth, because I think everybody out there should go out and see the 1972 version.
Yep.
There is no other version.
Well, and that's why I've never actually gotten around to the 2007, because I was like, oh my god, they're going to have him do Andrew. Oh, that's going to be so cool. I got to see Jude Law. Okay, I don't really know Jude Law at that point. Whoop, doop, doop. They changed the script. And I got to that point and I was like, that's okay. That's the first point where I'm going to be like, I'm sorry, the whole thing is dialogue.
Yep.
It's 2+ hours of dialogue. If you're going to change the script, I don't know how you're going to improve it, other than maybe making a thing where it's well, you can't use your cell phone because bitty. Like that I could have been okay with.
No,
3
they used
seconds.
the cell phone.
They did.
Yeah. And I mean, it is very much condensed and changed, because you're dealing with the original being over 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Or something like that.
I think it's 2:10 and 2:15. Yeah, but 6.
And the 2007 version's 88 minutes.
God, that's 45 minutes of film cut. I just did the math on that. That's fucking criminal.
Yeah.
And especially after the tightness and the excellence of that first film, the precision with which every single element of it was done. And was it the cinematography, or I mean, obviously the script being cut and everything else, but
everything kind of sucked. The
fuck, dude.
The cinematography, the camera angles were weird. There were weird shots. It almost felt to me like a film school project, an early film school project that somebody had done, playing with okay, we like this work. How can we do it in shorter form? How can we get some of these interesting shots, playing around with things? But it didn't feel like it really recalled the original or anything the first. Well, it's not the first shot, but the first shot that has any meat to it.
Yeah,
is an over the head shot where there's about 10 to 15 minutes of exposition between the characters. That's not really built into anything. It's oh, I'm burr 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 burr, and I do burr 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 burr.
Is it voiceover, or
No, it's back and forth between the character, but it's it's not building up like the original does. It's just oh, I'm fucking your wife.
Yes, you want to do? Yes, I'm working on my latest manuscript. So I understand you're going to marry my wife. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Yeah. With the zoom in, love that shit.
There's some parts of it, too, that I almost feel were jokes specifically if you had seen the original, but, the film is so bad that if you had seen the original, I don't think you could help but hate it.
So, desperately trying to pull in that last crowd, being
there's repeated references to, oh, you're a hairdresser, but the new guy's, an actor. And then there's, oh, you drink scotch, but no, you really like vodka. It's just
Why
to most of it, and I don't dislike Jude Law, But it was like almost one of those things where it was like, can both of you just suck? Can you just suck?
I feel. I mean, does Caine at least give a decent performance?
That's the one thing. Up until that flick, because I've been watching like 6 different movies, Michael Caine movies, in the last like 36 hours. And like obviously I've seen Michael Caine before this. I love Michael Caine.
Obviously, yeah.
But like before that,
doing this show now, wouldn't we?
Well, it would have gone very differently.
Yeah, very.
It might have ended in fisticuffs.
My God.
But before that movie, I was like, even if the script's poor, even if the directing's poor, Michael Caine still gives an outstanding performance. And I don't know if I can say that about the 2007 Sleuth. It was really weird. Like I don't know that I can say that either Jude Law or Michael Caine gave a bad performance. Again, so many problems with it. The writing, the cinematography, the directing.
It was probably the directing.
And, like, when you're in that type of thing where there's a two-man play, there has to be a chemistry. There has to be a back and forth.
Yeah.
And a lot of it felt like, oh, you finish what you're saying, and now I'll say my line. So, like, I don't even know if I can, like, technically fault the delivery of lines, because there are still some, like, individual lines that are delivered well, but, like, there isn't that chemistry, there isn't that build-up between them, and it's just off.
Well, I feel like that's probably an issue with directing. I mean, the same shit that you see with, like, Hayden Christensen in episodes 1, 2, and 3, Natalie Portman in episodes 1, 2, and 3. And Hayden Christensen isn't a bad actor. He's not a great actor, but he's not a bad actor. Natalie Portman is, like, a good actor.
Yeah.
Like, she's solid as fuck. But her performance in those movies is, at best, anemic. And part of that is that, like, if the director is not bringing together the vision and isn't, like, making sure it all meshes and making sure that all the chemistry is there, that every line is dynamic and playing towards that thing, then it falls flat. And I think that there's a lot of the time where there's performances by good actors where people are like, oh, they did shitty in that. And I'm like, maybe, but my buddy is the director being, no, do it like this. I swear to God, it'll be great. And then being like, okay.
And, like, in addition to everything that I've said, there was, like, weird, like, homoerotic moments in it that, like,
really
went from being kind of, like, subtle, jokey, like, maybe this isn't a real thing, to, like, no, this is not subtle anymore. This is overt in your... Ugh.
That's... I mean... I don't see how that fits into what the film is about. That like whole question of it's the guy who's devoted his life to games, but there's never been a cost, and the man who has been forced to play games his high life at maximum stakes.
Yeah, I mean the closest thing that I can
struggle.
The closest thing I can equate it to is the DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet, the modernization
with the Baz Luhrmann shit shack pile of like
we're all riding around in cars, and isn't this a laugh?
Massive like sped up panning shot of John Leguizamo's like awkwardly shaven head. I fucking hate that. Like, I don't even hate Baz Luhrmann. Like, I like Baz Luhrmann when he does Baz Luhrmann. But that movie, I made it like 20 minutes in, maybe in part because I'm a Shakespeare nerd, whatever. I am a Shakespeare nerd. I studied him for years.
I'm not giving you shit. I love Shakespeare.
Shit on everything. I know. I'm sorry. I get defensive because it's like, oh, Shakespeare nerd. Damn right. Damn right.
At least, if that was going to take a steaming shit on one of Shakespeare's plays, at least it was Romeo and Juliet.
True.
Because
definitely his worst
so
fucking
far
play.
Down the totem pole.
Well, yeah, like, I've always found Romeo and Juliet to have maybe, like, 3 decent fucking characters in it, because the whole core of the play is a love affair between a sleep-deprived 13-year-old, like, severely sleep-deprived 13-year-old, and a slightly less severely sleep-deprived 12-year-old. Like, that is the heart of this film. And I think other than Mercutio, Friar Lawrence, and maybe the Prince, There's not one fucking likable, relatable, decent fucking character in the whole goddamn thing. Not even Benvolio, who's there for like the first half and was like, I saw everything, Prince. It was all like this, and now I'm going to fuck off and do cocaine in my basement. Like, you never hear from this motherfucker again. Romeo is just up for 4 straight nights. The play is 4 days. He's up every single night of the play. He does not sleep. And in the first fucking scene of the play, they're like, oh yeah, Romeo was up all night because he was sad about that chick. So extra day, 5 days, sleep deprived. So stupid. That's why he kills everyone in the end. It was a very realistic depiction on Shakespeare's part of like, yeah, crazy jackass teenagers. Alright, I'm gonna write crazy jackass teenagers the play. Fucking hate it. It's like how Charles Dickens, they introduce you to Charles Dickens in high school with great expectations. Like the biggest, fattest, nasty, wet, greasy deuce that man ever took as a novel. And they're like, yeah, read this. Miss Havisham's Cake. It's just Miss Havisham's Cake, the whole book.
Part of me too really wonders what Laurence Olivier would have thought of both the remake of Sleuth and the modernized Romeo and Juliet as a Shakespearean actor.
I have no idea. That would have been wonderful. Though it is interesting about Olivier's relationship, specifically to theatrical acting. He was very much a theater actor, but then he gave it up because his stage fright got so bad that he could not function. And they would have like buckets off stage where he was waiting for his entrances because he would just repeatedly vomit over and over and over until his entrance.
That's gnarly.
Because of how bad it was, and that's why he moved 100% to film, because he was like, I can work on the film until it's right. And on stage, I can't do that. It's whatever comes out that time. And I'm
sometimes
not putting
that's vomit.
Yeah, and I'm not putting my good work out there. And yes, vomit came with it. You know, buckets. Every single wing.
Whether it's just noble or
That's, I mean, it's kind of beautiful. I'd watch his Lear, like, you know, doing the, like, giant monologue, like, raving in the wasteland.
But it would kind of
vomiting
make sense.
into a bucket. I mean, I could go with that. He'd just have to pick his characters, like, he'd do a great Sir Toby Belch. That's perfect. Just, you know, vomit periodically midway through your monologues. But again, digressing.
Or if he was, you know, still around in the modern day and there were, you know, plays about bulimic teenage girls, he could, of course, go on and be a bulimic teenage girl.
Yes? I mean, that would be
100-year-old.
I mean, 100-year-old actor Sir Laurence Olivier was in a film that's released today. It's called Dying to Be Pretty. It's on Lifetime. Everyone should watch it. It's certainly an interesting work. Which just circles back around to the cross-dressing thing in the original one, which I love. It's just where Milo's like, that'd be a gag, wouldn't it? Like, and I'm sorry, I have to just, and again, spoilers, whoop, 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 if you haven't seen Sleuth, like, fuck. Number one, you fuck it up, and number two, just son of a bitch. Okay, the performance of Doppler, no spoilers involved, so I'm sorry for my whooping, was so amazing. Like, my first time through, I did not expect the twist of what was going to happen with that character. And
I did, but I didn't at the start.
Yeah. There's points in it where you, like, especially towards the end, you can see the little, like, what was that? And there's, like, 2 moments where the voice breaks. And that, for me, was just like, oh, my God, so wonderful watching that performance go through. And as part of that, you know, like, everybody in that movie gives such a great performance. And that's, again, part of what's sad about the new one is, you know, apparently, like, I mean, again, this sounds like something I'm going to have to watch alone. Not alone, actually. I should watch it very drunk with a few friends who are willing to scream at it with me. Yeah, because if I'm by myself, I'm just going to break things that I actually care about.
Like I said, I watched it alone, and I watched them back to back because I wanted to see what Michael Caine did with the different characters. But, like, it was like having a nice quality French dip. Yeah. And then being like, that was tasty. You know what I need? Another French dip. going out, and the only place that's open is fucking Arby's.
Oh.
And you just take home that Arby's sandwich.
Dry stack. Yeah. No, not worth it. I don't know. And that's why, like, it was actually funny. I was joking yesterday. I was talking to somebody about it, because I didn't end up watching 6. I ended up watching 4. Which, in and of itself, that we've watched 10 movies between us, and the only overlap was the 1972 Sleuth, I think.
Well, yeah.
The last 36.
It's a tribute to clearly how much he's put out in his catalog. It's interesting, too, because, like, he's put out a metric fuck ton, if you will. And the shit that he's known for has really been, like, all the modern shit.
Mostly,
or at least, like, what people have come to know him for.
There have been, like, 2 periods of his fame, because there was the Sleuth period where it was, like, that and Alfie, which is another one of his, like, old school seminal works that I really need to see, and another one that they remade with Jude Law.
Really?
Like, about
I don't want to watch it now.
It was about
I like Jude Law. He was in Gattaca, man. Gattaca.
Look, I mean, I love Gattaca. I saw it in motherfucking
I love Gattaca, too.
Class.
Matter of fact, I like literally everybody that's in Gattaca. Gattaca may be my favorite film for them.
Wow.
Like, definitely my favorite Uma Thurman. Definitely my favorite. Probably my favorite Ethan Hawke, man. Definitely my favorite Jude Law.
I could definitely see that. Yeah, Ethan Hawke's great in that. Well, that's super cool. Like, I mean, I don't know Jude Law super well. I've liked him.
I don't either.
Gattaca. Have you seen Existence?
No.
It's a Cronenberg film.
For sure.
Shit show with, like, organic video game controllers that hack into your mind. It's Cronenberg, so, like, it kind of has its own version of the long live the new flesh, long live the new flesh, long live the new flesh at the end, where you're just like, what the hell, David? But it's fun, just as a Jude Law, you know, kind of exploration. I can't remember who the main actress is in that. Someone else who's famous. But digression. But yeah, he had, like, those 2 periods of his, like, fame, which is when he was young, and he was kind of like this weird, kind of off heartthrob, because he had the Cockney accent, and, like, went with that.
I mean, yes, that's what he's iconic for.
Yes.
But
he can do the others.
He can. He very much can. And, like, I think that's definitely an underrated part of his repertoire.
Yeah.
I mean, he certainly does a number of other accents, and I mean, even in Sleuth.
Like, they're constantly switching accents, which is part of what I love about the film. But, I mean, it's actually something that Michael Caine has, like, come out about and is, like, super hardcore about, is the fact that he didn't lose his accent. Like, and he talked about, like, the area I came from, you know, a bunch of actors came from there. We were all poor. You know, we all ended up doing, like, the arts, and a bunch of us became actors. And, you know, everybody tries to lose their fucking accent so that they can fit in better. And fuck that. I'm not afraid of where I'm from. Yeah. Like, he went on this whole rant about how Roger Moore grew up 2 streets over from him when they were kids, and how he was a bitch, and he, like, forgot where he came from. But Michael Caine remembers.
I'd agree with all of that.
Fat rant.
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah. But fucking Michael Caine remembers. Like a tangerine. Which, one of the other films that I just actually finished right before you got here to record this, I watched Batman Begins for the first time, which was funny on a lot of levels, and it was kind of iconic of the new Michael Caine that you've kind of seen.
Right. I mean, I definitely think that, like, if you walked up to somebody on the street right now, it was like, oh, do you know Michael Caine? Have you seen Michael Caine? What have you seen? It would probably be like Batman and Inception. Maybe a third chuckle fuck thing.
Batman. Was it Inception?
I think so. Could be insane.
I don't think he was. But I'm insane. Be tripping. He was in Muppet Christmas Carol, which a lot of people immediately recognize him from. Sure. He was in Harry Brown, which we all know was an international box office smash.
Okay. So, Harry Brown. I've only seen the film once.
Yeah.
I think it's relatively well done. I certainly think that his part in it is well done, well acted.
Does the perfect, like,
it's a harsh film,
man, you know.
I don't know that I'm ever going to see it again, but the situation that I saw it originally was not ideal.
Okay.
So I'd had a party the night before, and everybody had left except for John and I. It was the next day about 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So not quite hungover, but it's definitely still like a little bit of the alcohol woozy, not 100% there.
Feeling kind of shitty.
And so like we're on Netflix, like, oh hey, what do you want to watch? What do you want to watch? It's like, have you seen Harry Brown? I was like, no, what's that? Oh, Michael Caine. I love Michael Caine. Sure, I'll watch this film.
God, that's like a horrible bait, like you directly into the bear trap. Like,
and
fuck,
like,
dude.
The first scene in the film, I almost like turned it off because I was like, God, fuck this. Like, I'm not in the mind state for this right now. But I didn't.
Oh, so you sat through 2 hours of that.
Not only this, John got high and passed out on me.
Oh, so you were
alone. I
watched
Harry Brown ostensibly alone. There was a friend in the room, but he was not conscious.
Was out, yeah.
And that was my experience with Harry Brown.
That's miserable. And it's funny, I've only had one somewhat comparable experience, which is funny because we were also talking about Baz Luhrmann. The one time I ever saw Moulin Rouge, which I actually thought was quite good.
Oh, I enjoyed it too.
Less than ideal circumstances. A while ago, was the girl I was dating's birthday. She was turning 18, and I was 19 at the time. And went over to her house to pick her up in the morning because that was like the plan for what we were going to do. So we were going to go to the Getty, we were going to do a bunch of things.
Oh, nice.
I got there, and I go in, and she's like, hey, we're going to watch a movie. You want to watch a movie? And I was like, yeah, for sure. We're going to like cuddle, watch Moulin Rouge. You've never seen Moulin Rouge. Well, let's watch Moulin Rouge.
Really?
I'm like, cool. So we sit down, we're going to watch Moulin Rouge, and it's me and her and her sister. And at some point during it, I forget which of her parents like walked through and saw me and just glared. And then glared at her and then walked back out of the room. And I was
would have
like,
been funny if they turned to look at the TV and just glared at me.
Glared at John Leguizamo.
This is your fault. You did this.
How dare you. Forbidden love. But yeah, then like 3-4 minutes later, like both the parents came back and were like, can we speak with you? She was like, okay. She left. And they walked like into the next room and just started like full tilt screaming in each other's faces. So I'm sitting there like, okay.
Should I go?
I got the gist that apparently she hadn't told them that I was going to show up at the house. She thought that, or her parents thought they were all going out for breakfast, and then she was meeting me up later.
Okay.
And there was like a whole thing. She just hadn't communicated to them at all, and they fucking hated me anyway because I wore a kilt. And
those people in kilts, they're not to be trusted.
No, that was actually like a bone of contention. It was like he disrespected this house by wearing a kilt into it. And I was like, are you shitting
That's
me?
fucking stupid. But continue.
But yeah, and like stuff starts getting broken. Like she ended up like giving us like boxer's fracture on the hand that day because she punched through a TV screen like while arguing with them. So like, soon as the screaming starts, her sister, who's like 8 or something, heaves like a fat sigh, pulls out a bunch of origami paper, and starts folding origami. She folds a piece of origami and she just kind of wordlessly turns to me and hands it to me. And then continues and keeps folding origami. And she just like wordlessly like chain past me origami for the rest of the movie because they argued for the rest of the movie. And so it's why, like, while Moulin Rouge, I was like, this was well done. But I can't say I have totally pleasant memories of my experience of the film because of that.
All right.
Yeah, so that was a fun little experience. But jumping back to Harry Brown, another fun little experience.
Quite.
I gotta say, like, well, I thought it was well done, and definitely, like, I mean, it's British action, so they go all the fucking way with it, which is actually something I find really funny, is that British action and crime, like, violent crime thrillers and shit, just push the envelope way the fuck more than American ones do.
Oh, yeah.
On the whole that I've seen.
I still think the Korean one's the most fucked up.
Yes, okay, but I mean, if we're talking about scale, that's like way up the list, like, but my main issue with it was that, like, you don't get away with talking to British cops the way the people in that movie talk to British cops. Like, people do it, sure, and then they get miserably, brutally wailed on with billy clubs for like 30 minutes, and then arrested. And then they get out and do it again, which is part of why
they beat wholesale ass for free.
Yeah, like, that's part of why the hooligans in England are so committed to their hooliganry, because they've had to take a hell of a lot of beatings to continue with it. Like, but, yeah, there's like the whole scene in Questioning where it's like, I'll fucking rape you, copper, and it was like, you can't say that. The riot scene, where the riot cops just kind of stand there awkwardly and kind of shuffle and don't know what to do, and are like overwhelmed and pushed back by the rioting chavs. I was like, none of that makes a fucking lick of sense. Like,
it's a film.
I don't give a fuck.
And there's a certain degree of fantasy that plays into that.
Okay.
And I don't think that you could have gotten everything that is Harry Brown if you would have taken things to a T.
No, that's true. That, you know, death wishy kind of standing up against the
B. I think there are distinct points that are made or trying to be made with the movie.
Yeah. In
terms of state of criminal activity, police force, back and forth between them. And C, it's also a movie that, while it's distinctly in a British setting, has quality British acting in it, is made for a global audience. And I think if you would have had the British police badassery, it would not have only taken the film in a different direction. It would have been less appealing to global audience, specifically American movie-going audience.
I definitely feel that, because you have to build up how awful the bad guys are and that there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. But this man,
this 90-year-old man,
former British merchant marine. What the fuck? I have to say, like, my favorite thing in the whole movie is the, like, you've neglected your pistol, son. And, like, the rant about gun care.
Oh, yeah.
After the guy blows his own hand off.
I think it's like, you, sir, have failed to maintain your weapon.
That's it.
But yeah, like, that whole scene is awful. That line is great, but that whole scene is fucking awful. Yeah. And, like, eventually at the end, when, like, the dude's, like, fucking, like, bleeding out, basically, with the fucking gut wound. It's like, you should have called an ambulance for the girl. Like, so well done.
It is. No, and that's the thing. A lot of the violence in that film is really tense, because a lot of it is really realistic violence, in that, like, no, Michael Caine can't just walk in and, because he's angry, win the fight, which is something
he's not Nick Cage.
Like, infinitely escalating. Yeah, Nick Cage is basically just the Incredible Hulk. Just skinny, you know, like... Though I would actually love to see him do a turn as Bruce Banner and the Hulk, like, have him be both, you know, to be
and just
funny.
have it be the same thing.
Yeah, just have him go, "Ah!" and turn green without changing his body at all. Just screaming, "I'm a vampire," running around in circles. But yeah, Harry Brown is one of those movies that, like, definitely not the most accessible thing. And such a wonderfully bleak ending. Like, I truly appreciated the bleakness of that end, of him being like, and my friend's still dead. Oh. And then the movie ends, and it's literally like, and despite everything you did, you're still all alone.
The thing that fucking killed me the most in that film, and, like, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling this for people. I really don't care. Harry Brown's a good movie. If you want to see it, fine. If you don't. I mean, it's fucking harsh at the end of the day.
It's not like Sleuth, where it's like, you know, twists and turns. You know where it's going. It's British Death Wish.
But the fucking betrayal by the bar owner.
Oh, yeah.
I just could not fucking stomach.
No, that sucked ass. It was also not, I thought, the most likely turn of events. There was like a bunch... That was one of the things that I didn't like as much. But yeah, it did definitely amp up the harshness.
Oh, yeah. That... pit of my stomach, both like hate, frustration, anger, sad. It got to me.
Gets you right where you live. And, that could be argued that that's what makes a good film, is that, getting you right where you live. But...
Well, much like, you hated this person in this film, and clearly that shows, their acting chops, and they did a good job with the character.
Yeah, like...
Don't get me wrong, sometimes it's true, but...
Yeah, it's still when that hits you. Which, it happens. But jumping way back, a couple of topics. His turn as Alfred. Which I've actually kind of liked as much as I loved the classic depiction of Alfred.
It's one of those things where, like, I don't know for a fact that the original Alfred was dead by the time of the shooting of the Christopher Nolans, but it certainly stands to reason.
I believe he was.
And if you're going to replace a character in that way, I think Michael Caine was a good choice. Arguably the right choice.
No, I thought that it's been a great... I thought that he did a great job with the character of balancing the necessary tartness of Alfred with also the fact that Alfred, is an employee. But I actually really enjoyed the fact that they make that point in the first one, is that actually, technically, Bruce Wayne gave Alfred everything, like all of his shit. So Alfred basically is a co-owner of all of Bruce Wayne's shit. So actually, Alfred can go, no, I'm taking away your keys. Because Batman is an overgrown child.
Very much so.
In watching Batman Begins the first time, I loved that they really, truly make that point. The Batman is like an emotionally stunted, overgrown child, like multiple times throughout the film. Like even at the end, it's literally like you're still an overgrown child.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you haven't learned this trick, Raish. Roz.
These nuts.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was fun. Liam Neeson doing his little turn on the catwalk. Did his little turn on the catwalk. Jazz hands.
And punch and kick
and punch and kick and jazz hands. Which...
young Heimlich. That maneuver is the key to your greatness.
He's dying. 9. He's practice. Which there's so many
portions are always too
big. How can we ever thank you? This bratwurst und Bier. And that is how I, Roland Emmerich, see it. It's always sausage with you. Which there's so many cultural references now that I understand way more because I've seen it, and I hadn't before. I'd only seen Dark Knight. I still haven't seen the third one, so I'd be interested to see how certain things progress now over the course of it, because definitely there's a significant tonal shift between Batman.
You've seen my favorite of the Nolan Batmans. The first one is my favorite of the Nolan Batmans.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
I think there's a lot of love that the second one gets, specifically with the portrayal of Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
And I think it's deserving, but it's also a bit much.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is also it happened right before, it happened right after his death, so there was a lot of hero worship over that. Mm-hmm. And I thought he gave a great performance as the Joker, but it was a performance as the Joker.
Right.
And it wasn't better than Mark Hamill's, so, I mean, we've discussed our feelings about that before. It was a very different take.
Oh, yeah.
I thought he did a great job of it. He's one of my favorites, but I enjoyed the film for a lot of reasons, not the least of which being it's my one, claim to fame, is that I'm an extra piece of audio on the DVD release of The Dark Knight, uncredited, because they didn't want to pay me.
Because
fucking
God hates a working man.
Pretty much. Well, they told me they were going to pay me like $300, and I came in and I recorded the voiceover, and they're like, yeah, there's nothing in the budget, so we're not paying you. We'll give you credit. And I was like,
well, shit. And I left, and the woman who got me the gig was like, so did you get your check and everything? And I was like, no, they told me on the way out there was no budget. And she's like, it's the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
There's budget. I'm going to go yell at them for you. And then, like, 3 days later, her daughter ran away, and there was this whole drama where, like, she, like, ran away from home and, like, called me and was like, hey, I'm on my way to your house. And I was on acid, and there was all this shit. So I had a falling out with her mom's because of that whole experience. I'm not going to go into the whole thing here.
Yeah.
You know, I've already told one embarrassing personal story this podcast. Revealing. But, yeah, so not only did I not get my check ever because she stopped pulling on my behalf, they also just didn't even credit me. But there is one line, you can hear me. So there's a transition from the opening scene in the parking structure with the, like, I don't wear hockey pads, into the next scene. There's a panning shot. There's one line, which is, what is Harvey Dent gonna do for us? That's me. Gotta turn it up because it's in the background, but it's there. I'm in it. But
it's okay, Patrick. I know you believe that this is reality.
Shut up! You don't own me. I created it inside my mind, and it's real.
But yeah,
I'm interested in why you liked the first one better than the second.
I'm definitely in line with the feeling of the character from Venture Brothers. It's one of the assassins, and he talks about how much he loves Batman. He's like, you know, why I love Batman? Because he has the greatest villains.
From Venture Brothers?
Yes.
Who's saying, is this later season? Because I might not have seen
this it. This is like 2 or 3.
I'm thinking on with 2 and 3. What assassins? Which assassins?
It's like the Collector or something. I don't fucking remember. It's definitively from Venture Brothers.
For sure.
But, like, honestly, my favorite villain from the Christopher Nolan arc was Scarecrow. I loved that portrayal. And I also, I mean, I liked Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul, so having both of them in the same film definitely helped. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy some of the things that other villains did or what have you, but like it's the one that spoke to me the most.
Well, I can definitely feel that. And I did think that other than there's nothing to fear but fear itself, like menacing FDR quote, like kind of blew in my opinion. That for me, like I straight pulled me out, and I was like, all right, well, fuck you then. You know, you ain't Abraham Lincoln, vampire hunter. But which is, I think, a discussion for another day. But there were these weird nonsensical moments that happened periodically in it where I was just like, what? Like, just why did you do that thing? You didn't, okay, well, cool, that's a thing. I did also enjoy Cillian Murphy getting tased in the face. And yeah, just like there were a couple of just like odd, weird little plot holes that I was just like, you didn't even like.
For sure.
For example, Ra's al Ghul, like balance, or what is it? Justice is balance. You burned my home and left me for dead, so I might as well return the. He didn't. He carried him down the mountain and paid for him to be cared for by the villagers. That is definitively not being left for dead. I mean, I know that he got Lazarus pitted anyway, and that kind of makes you go a little bit cuckoo.
Right.
But I'm sorry, like, that wasn't the series of events. There wasn't even, like, a mention of that. There was kind of the, like, I don't have to save you thing, but, like, why wasn't there, like, fuck you, homie, I did save you. Well, it wasn't enough. Well, this time I don't save you. Like, at least some kind of a nod to that, instead of it literally being this, like, snide, glib, like, brr. And there were just a couple of moments like that during it that, like, bugged me
that I didn't feel like were in Dark Knight. There were no points in Dark Knight where I was like, well, you just missed that bus. Like, why didn't you address that thing?
For sure. That particular exchange didn't bother me because I kind of read into and saw the mental gymnastics that got from point A to point B. So I didn't need it to be explained.
But it's
also the point of that scene, at least to me, is that the situation is dire enough that there's not time for the back and forth.
In that scene, maybe. But again, it's like one of those things that happen. It's a specific pet peeve of mine where you have the like glib interaction and everybody acts like the conversation's actually been had by the two characters, and it hasn't. And that's an issue for me in the exact same way that, like, watching progressive TV shows where it's like, oh, I need to tell them the truth about this thing. And then they go to tell the person the truth, and the other one's like, I already know the truth. I don't need to hear it, but has the wrong conception. And it's like, just go. Just go. No, tell them what you came to tell them. It's the same kind of, like, issue that I have where they just kind of sidestep actually having the necessary conversation, which is also, like, a crux emotional point for these two characters.
I understand that.
And they have enough time to be having a calm discussion. Like, you know, and that bugged me. And I'm not saying, like, I definitely love the movie, and I'm going to have to rewatch both of them to see which one I like better, and I also haven't watched Dark Knight in, like, 4 years. So there might totally be moments that have emerged since the last time I watched it.
Well, I mean, I think we're going to have to marathon all three of them together. Right after our Home Alone marathon.
I'm actually super down for that. That would be an interesting one.
Because clearly Macaulay Culkin grows up to be the Batman.
Secretly, that neglect turned him into Robin.
It's one of those things that weirded me about watching Cider House Rules, actually, is like one of Macaulay Culkin's like 12 brothers is in that film.
Oh, that's
and like
weird.
they look like goddamn the same, but like he's a little kid. And it was just weird. It was just weird.
Nice. I don't know. But I definitely liked Alfred's character, and I don't know where they drive with it. You know, bringing back to our purported topic of discussion, our jumping off point, as it were.
Michael Caine!
Michael Caine! No! I mean, you have a lot of jumping off cliffs and whatnot in that, too. Which, actually, that was kind of cool, was watching how closely the aesthetic in the like Arkham Asylum and Arkham City mirrored what they did with the Christopher Nolan films. But sideline, my one disappointment in now seeing the first two is that they've done absolutely nothing to explain Alfred's background. I mean, other than the fact that he's essentially Harry Brown, if Harry Brown didn't sell like a tenement somewhere, because it's implied that he was like in some kind of paramilitary unit, that whole thing, my friends and all were hired to find the local warlord. You know, that turned out Australian, it wasn't intended. But, again, like, that was a whole thing where I was like, so, former mercenary? Harry Brown? Like, I don't know what's going on here. How did he wind up in the employ of the Wayne family in New York City as a butler and nanny, essentially, after being a mercenary in Southeast Asia? Like, there's serious character jumps there, and I don't know if they address that in the third film, and I'm thinking chances are they don't. Which, you know, is a sadness to me, because, like, I think there was some opportunity there that could be cool, you know? Turns out that actually it's been a game of chess between him and Roz the entire time. You know,
that would be fantastic. Sadly, it's a trilogy and it's done.
Yeah. They're doing it now.
Did you hear that Christopher Nolan's attached to Akira now, and that Akira might be a trilogy?
Yeah. I'm of two minds about it, because I don't think that it needs a new film version. I don't think that it being live action. Can
if you're going with the greater universe of the graphic novels.
Well, and that's, again, that was the thing I was going to say.
But if you're turning the movie into 3 movies, you're fucked and you're wrong.
I mean, the manga is huge, so if he's drawing from the manga...
They're like that, and there's like at least 5 or 6 volumes that are...
tons of it. And by that, just so you know, Etienne held his fingers about 2.5 inches, 3 inches apart. So,
they're tomes. They're like if you pulled out a fucking encyclopedia, but it was like a fucking graphic novel.
It's the Lord of the Rings of manga. I 100% agree with you, and that was what I was building to, was like, literally like, okay, they left a shit ton of stuff out in the original movie because they couldn't convert all the shit that happens in the manga leading up to those events into a single film, and if he's drawing from that, that's awesome. If it's just a remake of the film, I don't see how that's necessary, A, and B, I don't think that it being live action necessarily aids what it is and what it's trying to be. I mean, so much of the visual in the original built towards that like horror, that unnatural thing, and if they're doing a live action, it's going to wind up being CGI. It's going to be a big bloated mess of fucking stupid bad CGI. I mean, even if it's great CGI, you don't get that same visceral effect that I think you get from the original animation.
Yeah.
Because we don't register CGI stuff like that in the same way. It doesn't register to your brain as real. Like...
Well, the other thing, too, is I think it's not even, like, set in the... There's a bunch of problems, but I think it's, like, not even set in Neo-Tokyo.
It's set in Los
loosely
Angeles.
Drawing this... Yeah.
Traveling in time.
Neo-Angeles.
Los Angeles. Fuck.
Loosely returning this back to where we were with Michael Caine. Jekyll and Hyde.
Ah!
I don't know if you've seen it.
I've not.
It gets a lot of breaks because of the wording that it used. It's derived from.
No.
Not based on A, and B, it was a made-for-TV movie.
Oh, so it's even worse than inspired by. Derived from.
But it has great acting in it, and that's the thing that pisses me off. It doesn't have, like, the catalyst for them exploring who Hyde is twofold. It's a newspaper that's trying to, like, go back and forth between the, like, feud with Dr. Lanyon and Dr. Jekyll, based on the whole difference of opinion and theory and where medicine is going at that point. Yeah. Which I was okay with. And the other aspect of finding out who Hyde is driven by the whole police force after Hyde pushes a girl under a horse and gets trampled. She's not even trampled to death. She's not even long-term scarred. They end up taking her to Jekyll, and Jekyll fixes her up. And yet there's this long-term manhunt to find out who Hyde is based on this incident. There is no incident with Sir Danvers Carew, which I think is fucking criminal.
Well, because that's what I was going to say. I'm like, they don't have the beating? Because that's what it is. That's the scene that gets attention to Hyde, because he beats...
Yes.
The motherfucking, like, major public figure.
Yes. They have Mr. Utterson be, like, a background character when he's the vehicle for telling the story.
Yeah.
He doesn't even find out really what's going on until the end when he speaks to Dr. Jekyll's lover/wife. They have not one, but 3 love interests for him. They have
one for Jekyll.
They have a prostitute that he's involved with as Hyde. Which
doesn't make any fucking sense.
But they have this woman that he ends up with, and they have something before the story even starts. His former wife, who is now dead, and both of the non-prostitute girls are daughters of Dr. Lanyon. Which adds to the estrangement between the two of them before it even starts. But the whole point is that they are friends. They were friends. The whole point is that they have this disagreement that is
philosophical.
Purely... Yes.
And that's it.
Yes.
They are still friends. That's part
of... That's how they have the kid. That's how they go back and forth. At least they had the whole bit of, like, the transformation in front of him and everything still.
Okay.
They kept that. I was going to be super fucking angry if that didn't happen.
I'm still...
And like I said, this is well acted throughout. There's so many things, like...
Who is Caine?
He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
What?
And he does a really good job.
Wait, when was this released? Is he old? Are they both old?
This is 90s.
So he's old-ish. Oh my god. Oh my god, I have to see this.
There are redeeming qualities, but there's also such blasphemy in it.
It also sounds kind of like a crap sack, but...
I'm going to spoil the ending because I truly don't give a shit about this film. It ends with, like... it begins and ends because it's one of those things where it has kind of
flashback. Fight Club
with him talking to the woman who Jekyll was involved with, and it has like this pan into the face of the child, and it's Hyde's child. Blah 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 blah. It's just
so the evil
terrible.
Genes.
Well,
so it's literally like the horror movie, like hand coming out of the rubble, like Son of Hyde.
Yes,
I mean, I would watch a movie called Son of Hyde. I wouldn't expect anything good from it, but you know. Well, then what'd be funny is what if Hyde is trying to make something to make him more evil, and it separates him.
Well, the other thing
Jekyll
too,
and Jekyll destroys Hyde's life.
The whole Jekyll and Hyde thing doesn't come about because Jekyll's trying to explore a different side of himself that is, looked down upon by society. It's more like, for science, I must derive all things that are related to brain function and controlling what we are
into this vial, which I'm going to chug. That's. I have to say I'm intrigued. Like, I've got to see this.
As I said, the performances in it are well done, but, like, there's so much of this that you crapped on my heart. And I'm sorry for the last, 10-minute rant.
No, it's okay.
It was incoherent.
No, it was quite together. Again, the man has such a massive catalog that you can't go through the whole thing and not find the occasional real piece of shit.
It was one of those things where, after watching that film, I was like, okay, I had a real problem with this film. But at least he was still good in it.
Nice.
And then I watched the 2007 Sleuth, and I was just like, this is poop.
Blues Brothers 2000, Sleuth 2007. I don't know. For me, the other ones, I don't know if you've seen, because the four that I watched were the two that we've already discussed, obviously, Batman Begins and Sleuth, because I just had to get my rewatch in of the 72.
It's, again, a great fucking... it's one of those things that, if I didn't know you, and B, if we weren't doing this podcast, I might never have seen the film. And, I'm really glad that I saw this film. And, doing this podcast with you has, opened me up to new frontiers, exploring things both in a different light, and exploring a different variety of film than I would necessarily be able to get to.
A whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes.
A whole nude squirrel.
That's... for the fur, bruh.
It's shaved.
But in any event. No, and thank you. And the same is likewise true. You've showed me a whole bunch of movies that otherwise I might not have ever gotten around to actually watching. You are responsible for me seeing Clerks for the first time. You're responsible for me seeing, honestly, a huge number of, pretty major comedy films that I might not have ever gotten around to. And
for sure.
Yeah, this has helped motivate a lot of thought and a lot of discussion and viewing for me on film as well. But, there were those two, and again, I'm so happy that you saw Sleuth finally and that you love Sleuth. Because, like, again, I've been trying to show
I could not stop smiling
so
through,
long.
like, the first, like, 30 minutes of the film. I was just like,
so fucking yeah. Oh, the next line. Oh, what do you drink? Vodka and soda. Oh, very well. No vodka. Gin is fine. Oh, very good, very good. Because there's no soda either. Like, just fucking up his day. One of the other ones I watched, because I was going through the Netflix thing and was just like, what am I going to watch from Michael Caine? And I was thinking about rewatching Harry Brown, but they took it down. And so
you're
instead,
a braver man than I. That's all I'm gonna say.
I watched it in slightly more favorable conditions. It
doesn't matter. I enjoyed that film, but I don't think I need to see it again.
I feel you. It's like Funny Games, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but incredibly brutal German horror thriller film.
For sure.
That is just like 2 hours of like intense psychological punishment, where the antagonists periodically like stop and address you and are like, "Are you enjoying this? This is what you came in here to watch."
I think you have actually talked to me about this at one point. I just blocked it out of my mind.
It's a fucking brilliant film. It's just heinously unpleasant.
Anyways, Michael Caine, the movie Flawless.
Oh, yes. Another flawless work. No, it really wasn't. It wasn't bad.
It was flawful.
Yes.
Or falafel.
I got kids to feed, Flash. Well, they don't like falafel. It was literally a line, like one of those lines when I was like, "Oh my god, guys, why?"
Man, I like falafel, but you don't eat it every night.
No, and you can't sell inventory to you. Can't take your inventory for selling on the
right. It's bad business practice.
Yeah, like don't get high on your own falafel. Like it's basic.
But it tastes so good.
The third of the 10
chickpeas, you just load them into a bowl and you smoke them up.
Oh God! I just keep smoking these chickpeas, Brad. Gets me higher than God. But Flawless was an interesting piece of work. Demi Moore actually gave a very, very good performance, which is cool. Because like I have seen Demi Moore in precisely one movie, and that movie is Ghost.
For sure.
And while I love Ghost, Demi Moore's performance in that is, I think I've already used the word this podcast, but anemic. You're just kind of like, you don't do much. You're just this kind of like lump in the middle of the film. She's kind of a, like, other than the fact that she's seen, she's kind of a MacGuffin. Like, she's just a plot device to motivate Sam to not want to cross over.
For sure.
And so, like, that had been my only experience of Demi Moore. And she did a very credible job in the film. Basic idea of the film is it's like 58 or 1960. She works for the London Diamond Company, which had basically at that point controlled the entire world supply of diamonds through the South African diamond mines. And it's in the middle of all these political protests. And there's all this crap where, like, they're renegotiating with Russia, and Russia is threatening to pull and, like, go with a different company, and that'll completely ruin their monopoly and all this other shit. And she figures out a way to keep the Russians on board, and she finds out she's going to get fired. And the way she finds this out is that the janitor who cleans her office at night and is always like, "Oh, have a good night, ma'am," like, goes into her personal shit, and like she leaves like inspiring notes to herself inside of like an envelope that she periodically opens, like when she's feeling down. She opens the envelope and she had written like, "Don't give up, keep on pushing, you're gonna win." And he just wrote, "No, you're not," on the piece of paper, and then had like a time on the back. And basically he's like, "Well, you know, my pension sucks, and I figured out how to steal all the diamonds, and they're gonna fire you." She's like, "What are you talking about? They're gonna fire me?" And he's like, "Well, people have discussions in front of the janitor because they assume we don't care." But yeah, so
we notice things.
Yeah.
We hear things.
And so basically the whole thing is there's a heist, and then it slowly develops that Michael Caine's character came up with the whole plan for ulterior motives, and it turns kind of into a struggle of, wills between him and Demi Moore, and all around good performances. Definitely some of the most, butt-ugly lumps of human flesh that have ever been squeezed into a waistcoat in that film. The most, lumpy, misshapen, hunks of person, chiseled out of a stump with a dull chisel type looking dudes up in this movie. But quite well performed, quite well acted. Very much Michael Caine doing the modern Michael Caine type thing.
Yeah, I thought about watching that film, and instead I watched The Quiet American. Which is funny because it's definitely got elements of Sleuth, because it's Michael Caine and Brendan Fraser vying for the love of this same woman.
Yeah, well, it's in Vietnam during the Vietnam War or some shit.
It's in Vietnam, super early 60s. It's the start of America's official, unofficial involvement. There's still very much French present. In
military
Vietnam.
advisors.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting, but it's... I'm not going to disparage Brendan Fraser. But the pairing is similar to putting a nice Kobe beefsteak next to your Campbell's chunky soup.
Okay.
And
Campbell's chunky soup is solid, tasty.
It'll fill you up.
Versatile.
It gets the job done, but there's a definite quality gap.
Yeah. There definitely ain't no hydrogenated oils in your Kobe beefsteak. And it definitely never starred in George of the Jungle or The Mummy Returns. So, and don't get me wrong, I love Mummy Returns, and I don't hate George of the Jungle in the same way that, say, I hate Popeye.
Just in general, or?
No, I love the cartoons, the film. My father made me watch it sober, for which I've never forgiven him. He was like, I got the live action Popeye with Robin Williams, and I'm like, okay, and he was like, we're all gonna watch it as a family, and I'm like, okay, I'm in, but I'm telling you now, I'm gonna get high.
None of your family film watching experiences that you've shared have sounded good. They've all led to good stories.
Well, true.
But, everything that you've told me that you've watched as a family or talked about watching as a family has ended poorly.
Well, and that's unfortunate, because there's tons that aren't Sleuth is one that they were we're going to watch Sleuth. And I watched Sleuth, and I was like, holy shit. And they were like, right? I mean, a lot of my films...
So, in a way, we have your parents to thank for this podcast.
Yes, 100%. Early on, built my love of Michael Caine. That and Muppet Christmas Carol.
Well, I mean, they also created you.
Well, I mean...
In their laboratory.
Who's to say
the ground.
That I wouldn't have been discovered, by a German scientist on the other side of the world. I mean, that happens when the next scientific...
Who's to say that you aren't secretly Hellboy? Who's to say that you're not Ron Perlman on the inside?
My God, I'm a time-traveling Ron Perlman inside a time-traveling Bruce Willis. They don't know that they're working against each other. I don't remember what the fuck we were talking about. Live action Popeye. But yeah, he was like, no, you should watch it for the physical performances. And I was like, okay. And Eddie Izzard gave a great physical performance. Robin Williams did as close to Popeye as muttering and walking in a circle can make you. And all props to him. He did as good of a job as you could do with that. Shelley Duvall, olive oil, totally had the physicality down. The movie was still a goddamn turd, and I really should have been high for it. And I got to the end, and I was like, Dad, I really should have been high for this. I'm sorry. And he was kind of like, oh, but yeah, that totally to the side. How do we get off on Popeye? Oh, Brendan Fraser, George of the Jungle. Led to Popeye. I loved The Mummy Returns, and I even loved The Mummy. The Mummy was definitely a more coherent film The Mummy Returns, there's like no logical through line or exposition of what the hell's happening at the beginning. Suddenly there's dudes in red. Yeah, I had some questions about them like opposite each other in like a serious, heavy, romantic thriller thing.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I enjoyed it. If you feel like watching it, you should definitely watch it. But it was an odd pairing.
The ultimate odd couple.
And you know, not to keep harping on the point, but Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine was not.
Yeah. Was just flawless.
And on that note, I think we've come to the end of another TBD. Thanks
Say
for
it ain't so.
It ain't so.
Yay! We're never going away. Do you hear us, America? Nicaragua.
Those are the only countries we're listening to.
French Guiana. Pakistan. But in any event, signing off, this is Patrick of the Two Big Dudes podcast. And you gotta say bye.
Bye. This is Etienne of TBD. See you later.